Race. The 400-pound white elephant on many of our backs, and the only word that triggers white America more than Democrat. But the question is why? Why is it so hard for people who don't experience the most brutal mental and emotional and spiritual side effects of racism to talk about it? I mean, like the average white American once said, I'm not responsible for the actions of my ancestors. Word. But while those who came before us are responsible for creating the reality that we were born into, they don't maintain it. Every generation has a responsibility to evolve past the previous one. If you're not evolving and making sure your society is too, that's on you. I mean, how many white Americans have consciously tried to help society evolve past the lasting norms and harms of 400 years of brutality and oppression? To do so would require facing reality head on. And yet, we're banning critical race theory across the nation. And when the majority can't or won't acknowledge the reality of millions of its fellow citizens, and sometimes neighbors, something deeper is going on. So why is it happening? Is it guilt? Is it an actual deeper understanding that things are terrible for brown people in this country, and that truth, if faced fully, would break you? Is it a fear that if you actually faced and addressed the wrongdoings of not just your ancestors, but yourselves, and the perpetuation of systemic inequalities and racism in this country, that people of color would take revenge on you? Let me help you out, folks. We could have burned this thing down a long time ago. We still can. And yet, all we demand is that you and the institutions that you benefit from, often at our expense, stop stepping on our back. Our shoulders don't need the extra weight, especially since the average American is incredibly heavy. Look, we carry the trauma of our own experiences and the trauma passed down genetically by our ancestors and the anxieties that the future will hold further structural hazards to our safety and our ability to pursue life, liberty, and happiness. Sanity! And yet we have developed a greater empathy and awareness through our pain than you could ever understand through your privilege. At the very least, you need to see through our eyes to understand why you might need LASIK. The saddest part is we're not the only ones traumatized by racism. Those who do harm onto others, directly or indirectly, cause trauma to themselves as well. White people's ancestors genetically pass trauma down to them just as they will to their progeny. To break the trauma cycle, white people have to face the reality of the society that we live in and their part in maintaining or changing it. Rip the Band-Aid off. Close your mouth. Open your ears. That's how you learn. Because if nothing changes, everyone continues to suffer, including you. For WTF Weekly, I'm DC Williams. Tune in to part 3 where we explore why the N-word is not the holy grail of racism.